Welcome back to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'm Ed Harmon. Got another great guest here today. This one from the Bishop Gibbons era of the mid-'60s. One of the Halinski brothers, this one being Tom, talking to us from his home in Fenville, Michigan, out in the western part of Michigan. Tom, good to have you. Good to meet you. How's things out your way today?
Oh, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Nice talking to you. Southwest Michigan, I'm about a mile away from our big ocean, better known as Lake Michigan. And today we had a very nice day, probably low 50s. And all the snow that Buffalo got, we only got a little bit of it, but that's all gone for now. But more is on the way.
It always does. Want to talk? Let's get right into it. I want to talk to you about your high school career at Bishop Gibbons, and better yet, what brought you to Bishop Gibbons? Tell us about your growing up and how you moved to North Tonawanda.
Well, that's a good question, and I'm glad you're asking it. I started off in Niagara Falls, New York. Both my brother and I, my brother Tony and I were identical twins. And what does that mean? One egg split into two, and then you get two human beings. He was 6 minutes older than I was, so he was the older of us two. We grew up and in a Polish Catholic environment. My family was definitely into having a set of twins because we got, I don't remember any of this, but there were some pictures of my brother and I when we first went to kindergarten, and it was a Catholic school. And we were dressed up as sailors with identical clothing. So definitely we were identical twins, and we got played as such. Growing up, it was always kind of interesting because I was never separated from my brother in the sense that even in the womb, we were together. So we had a very good and close relationship for most of our lives. So we grew up, my dad worked for a company called Carborundum. He did some very specialty type works. He was a specialty crane operator. They produced something called actually carborundum, which is the hardest man-made substance in the world. And that's what they used for grinding stones. And then they transferred it into lens grinding material. But it was interesting. So he was there. My mom was a secretary. She kind of knew a lot about auditing and books. And then she decided to branch out and become a beautician. So she, in Niagara Falls, New York, my grandfather built or had a building, had it built, and he had some wonderful businesses there. This building housed his family. So my mother married, and my brother and my sister lived in one of the apartments. My aunt and uncle, my mother's sister, lived in another apartment with their children that grew up and left. I had another aunt and uncle on another floor, and they had 3 children, 2 boys, a girl, and the girl was my age and my brother's age, obviously. And we got along fine, and we just had a lovely time. However, living with family, and obviously my grandfather was the patriarch of the family, my dad and my mom wanted a place of their own. So they found this location in North Tonawanda, all right, built a house. And when I was 9 years old, we moved into our own house, and it was absolutely exciting. What was nice about that is, as I was growing up, all my neighbors, there was plenty of space because the housing was not really condensed at the time. There were all these fields that's all we had to do was mow them, and we had our own baseball diamond, we just had all this space, and it was absolutely amazing. And a lot of the people at Gibbons, the guys, they only lived a couple of blocks away. We got together, played baseball, had a good time. I took baseball in the Babe Ruth League. That was something new to me, and it was in North Tonawanda. And I heard about this one person. This guy was a super athlete. He was amazing. He had the name of Bob Aitkens. He was known for hitting home runs. So that was my initial exposure to the name, at least at that time. I never met him then, but Bob Aitkens. So then growing up, we went through the grammar school, graduated, then it was time to go to high school, and Gibbons was there. And my folks definitely said, you guys are going to get a good education. So they sent us to Bishop Gibbons High School. And I think it was one of the best things that happened to me, because as we know now, and probably people as they're growing up, those 4 years of high school are very formative, and they're tremendous in setting you up and making you understand what life's about, and a wonderful introduction. Of course, Gibbons had excellent teachers. It was just absolutely amazing. So we went out for football. I was asked what position would I like to take. And I said, gee, I would like to run with the football. So I said, I'm going to be a fullback. My brother, however, Tony, my dad's name was Tony also. My dad played some sports and was pretty good at baseball. He was fairly good at football. And he was the center in football. So he taught my brother how to become a center. And my brother excelled at that position, unbelievably excelled at that position. He was superb. So I was doing football. I was doing the fullback thing. Then I played some linebacker during our junior portion of the football league, junior varsity, I should say. And then I played a couple of other positions too. I played safety one game, and I scored a touchdown or two. So it was just a fun time. However, coming from Niagara Falls, and then coming from a grammar school that did not have physical education, it was like, oh my, what's all this? You've got to run a mile, you've got to do sprints. What was the 100-yard dash? My goodness. So I think my freshman year at Bishop Gibbons, absolutely amazing, and an eye-opening life experience, unbelievable, and nicely so. I really mean it. It was just all sorts of nice things happening. And then I got introduced to Bob Aitkens. And Bob Aitkens, of course, being the exceptional athlete that he was, he said, come on, we're going to go do some weightlifting. And I said, oh, I like weights. Okay, well, we'll do something like that. So he and I started off doing that first. And Gibbons had, they had their gym, which was converted into, a bunch of chairs. So that's where we had our assemblies. But adjacent to the gym and in a little hallway going towards the men's locker room, it wasn't the men's locker room, the boys' locker room. Because boys and girls, it was a high school. There weren't men and women yet, almost. Anyway, off to the side was a little room, and that's where Bob had a whole bunch of weights. There were barbells, there were dumbbells. There was that special exercise barbell that is tilted so that your hands could go this way, so you could do curls easier without, straining your wrists. If you use the regular barbell, it's like this, but if it was curved this way, you could do it. And so he kickstarted me on that one. and as you mentioned, I saw your interview with Bob Aitkens, that was an absolutely excellent interview, both on your part and Bob's part. He was the weight champion. He was the first. He was ahead of his time with weight workouts. It was absolutely amazing. And so he and I started doing a bunch of weightlifting. And of course, he was doing this for quite a while. I don't know, maybe a year or two more or so. And so weight wise, he was, ahead of me. I was doing lesser weights, but he would say he went through the routine. We would start off and do curls, and then we'd do clean and jerks, then the bench pressing. The bench pressing was the big one. And you would have to do it in sets. He had a wonderful routine for this. He did obviously a lot of studying for it, and I just picked up on it from his training. And weight training was very important and really helped out to make better players too. And so we were doing weight training and the bench pressing, and then we got to doing that. And then when Bob put on, we had to do at least 3 sets of whatever you did. You started off with a little lighter weight, and you did more reps. Maybe you did, 6 to 8 of those reps. Then you added weight, and then maybe you did 4 to 5 with that heavier weight. Then you had to at least do 1 or 2 more sets, and you put on maximum weight, whatever you think your maximum weight is, and you had to squeeze out at least 1. And of course, we were spotting each other. Bob was on a bench press, we were down. So you'd stand above somebody and you put your hands on the bar to make sure that everything was safe. He practiced perfect safety in all this. So we really had a good time. So that's kind of my introduction to this. And I started off, Tony and I started off, and my brother, Tony, came in probably a few months to the following year to doing the weight training, and he picked it up very nicely. Just, because he was good. And and so the 3 of us were doing a lot of weights. And then do you recall there was another person by the name of Tomasini, Rich Tomasini?
No, and that's a new name for me
too. Go ahead.
That's a new name for me, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Rich Tomasini was one of the Italian linemen. When you were doing Ed Harmon's interview, Ed mentioned, we had a great line, and Bob Aitkens says the same thing. Oh, the line was superb. We're at, all right. And by that time I was a offensive guard on the senior team, in the varsity team. So Tomasini was the Italian guy. Now, Ed Harmon said, we had all the Polacks, and while North Tonawanda High School had all the Italians. Well, we had a few Italians. Let's see, La Barbara. Okay, Bob La Barbara, he was good and whatever. So Tomasini was in there, and he would join us too. So he was a really burly guy. He was short and stocky and just naturally built to be a lineman. I think he played tackle. So that's what we did. We weight lifted, and when we were pumping weights, and after I got finished with a set, and we would pump weights, we tried to do it 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as best we could. Sometimes Fridays, no, because, it was school, and after school, we had other obligations, or maybe a dance to go to or something from the schooling. But when we got finished weightlifting with Aitkens, and Aitkens following his protocol, whatever, we were so sore. You could, and we would have this special thing that we go up to it, and I could say, "Hey, Bob, did you do all your weights?" Yeah. And if you just touch them right here in the pectoral muscles, because that's the muscle that you really get exercising, especially for a bench press, right? And if he didn't go, ow, and jump because he was sore, then you didn't do your workout so well that time, huh? And he would do the same thing to us. I mean, he would just touch it, and he was so sore from weightlifting, and we just bulked up. It was just absolutely amazing bulking up.
What did
We got to
how did your
go ahead.
how did your other teammates feel about you guys doing the weight thing? And better yet, how did the coaches feel about you doing the weight thing?
Those are two excellent questions. The other teammates, for example, especially my junior and senior year, my brother and I, we had some very nice exercises and skill exercises in training, football training, okay, and football practice. So my brother and I would pair up shoulder to shoulder, okay, and then they would get somebody coming in, and you had to burst through these people. And we did the same thing with two other people, but you'd get two people, one person trying to burst through and burst through, and by nobody got through between my brother and me. They hated going through us. They said, "Oh, these guys are terrible. Oh, no, I can't do that." All right. So we took pride in that, my brother and I. We said, "Come on, nobody's going to get through us," because we just bulked up and we had all this power. My brother and I did go to college and play college football for a short period of time. But just to give you an example of what I did in high school with Bob Aitkens, of course, he would start us off once we got into, our junior years and senior years to do a curl. We would start off with putting 75 pounds on the bar. That was for warm-ups. Do a quick 10 or 12 with 75 pounds. And then, of course, we got it up to like 170, 180 pounds, and you're doing curls with 180 pounds. I mean, I get tired just saying those numbers nowadays. So that's the kids. All right. And then the
Coaches,
I think they thought it was just fantastic because they knew that we had a lot of strength. We weren't the only ones. Bob Aitkens didn't come onto the football field till, I think, for sure, sophomore, possibly, I think, a junior year. That's when he came on. And of course, the coaches were really happy to have us in that shape. And then, after my freshman year of playing football and weightlifting with Bob Aitkens, I went out to see, I got a slight injury that year in my leg, but I went out for basketball, all right? And Aitkens, of course, and weightlifting was, you're supposed to have this power. You're supposed to have this strength, So I was going up for a layup. I'm bouncing this ball, go up for a layup, and I went like that and threw the ball up. It hit the backboard, bounced about 20 feet back, and I went, "Oh, that's too strong. You got to be a little bit more finesse than just power." So that was educating myself on how to say, well, you can still be strong, but there is still some finesse left. However, I never played basketball officially. I went out for track and field, and Aitkens was number one in track and field for shot put and discus. And I did shot put and discus, and so did my brother Tony. He did shot put and discus. But Aitkens, he was number one. Yeah, he was able to put the shot. That's the term, putting the shot. I don't know, in the 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think maybe he even reached 55 feet in that, He would throw the discus 130, 140 feet, and that was just amazing. Yeah. So if we had competition as we went out and playing other teams, there was no way I was taking first place in the shot put.
right? I want to go back to your football career. When you played your opponents, probably a lot of your opponents weren't into the weightlifting thing at all. Did you consider that a big advantage, you, Aitkens, and your brother, being so well versed in weight training, and it helped you in your game against Gibbons' opponents?
I would say yes, but I think some of the other teams, as we could tell, also had some weight training for them. You know, several opponents did not have weight training, and they were, you know, they were like, what's a good term that I'm looking for? Wasn't that they were impressed, but they knew that, you know, we at Bishop Gibbons had some strength that was more so than just from playing practice for, you know, the practice sessions in football. There was something else going on, and it was weight training. And they did. They understood, and they figured it out. I can think of an example. One, excuse me, when my brother, he was playing center, and we were playing a team, and I think this was actually a scrimmage game that was coming on, and I can't recall the name of the team, but there was my brother was the center on offense, and they had this one nose guard is the term that you could use, or he was a pretty big and tall guy. And my brother learned how to block perfectly, and he could keep his hands here, and he knew he wouldn't cheat. He wouldn't do the holding or anything like that. He just had the strength, and he could keep people away. So the coach of the opposing team got up to that guy and said, "Why aren't you getting through that center? You got to get back there and get that quarterback. Now go back there." And the guy said, "I can't. This guy is just so strong. He just keeps on pushing me away and knocking me over." So yeah, we did. You know, it showed. You know, it definitely gave us some excellent capabilities, and the other team just you know, when you're that strong and that powerful, it's kind of hard to do things. You know, there's more than just power. You do have to have some athletic ability, and we had kind of both, but we also had that overwhelming, that power that was there. That was excellent. Absolutely excellent.
You guys played your games at the old Better Field behind the junior high school, and typically your home games could be a Thursday night or it could be a Saturday, because North Tonawanda had Friday nights locked up. What's your recollection of playing on that field?
Oh, the field was, we just thought it was really good because, one, there were the lights there. If we played a night game, the field itself was well manicured. And there was all of these seating for spectators, and wow, now we're playing in front of a big group of people, and it was just super exciting. There was one time though, the field itself is kind of rounded, you know, so that the water would drain off of it, and Gibbons Field wasn't that sophisticated. Okay, it was kind of a flat field. So this one was once, and so one member, we were being introduced and running onto the field, you know, as we're being introduced, and one person, whoops, I'm getting a sign here that says my internet connection is unstable, but you're okay. You still see me?
I'm fine.
Oops, sorry.
I'm good.
All right. So this one very, very good tight end, names to be withheld to protect the stumbly. He was running out there, and he forgot about the slope of the field, and he couldn't keep up with it, and he tripped and fell being introduced out of there. So it was a tricky field in that sense, but the field, the grass was great, the lines were fantastic. The people who came to watch was great, and we just had a really good time. It was nice to play on some good grass.
You didn't have that same advantage or field when you were on the road, did you?
No. You played with whatever was there. You know, some of them were just flat fields. Some of them were, this used to be the baseball field, but for the fall, it's the football field. So come spring, it turns into the baseball field. And so you have to worry about the dirt versus the grass where the diamond was. And yeah, so we just continue playing. We just had this desire to play football, play as best as we can. And we played honestly. There were some teams that they did some tricky things. They would come out and try and do the forearm underneath your chin, but we played a very tough, honest game, and I would contribute. I would say that's a good part to Hank Lewis. He was our main coach. They had other coaches too, and the backfield coach was really good. We had a good defense coach, but Hank Lewis said we're playing good, honest football here, and that's what we did.
Were you ever tempted to maybe jump ship and go over to the public school and play for North Tonawanda?
Actually, no. No. I felt so comfortable at Gibbons. I made such good friends, and just the coaching staff and the people, the organization. We had top-notch equipment. What did they call the group of parents that would put on a bingo night? Okay, they were the boosters. There we go. They were called the boosters, and the boosters, amazing what they did. They played bingo, and the profits from that, they bought us top-notch gear. They bought us things that would protect us like crazy, and that was really, really good. Plus, starting out early, there was a man by the name of Sheldon. He was our first aid guy. He was the one that would tape up our ankles. And then my dad picked up, he was a first aid man in the CCC camps, all right? This goes back. And he became an assistant trainer, if you will, for Gibbons, and he made lots of friends with all the players, the Gibbons players, and they would call him Uncle Tone, and so that he was popular. So yeah, we just had this wonderful organization. The organization of the parents helped us out. They bought us good equipment. So I would say, I thought about going to the public school. A couple of things popped out. I think I would not, and I can't prove this, but I would guess I was so impressed with the teaching staff at Bishop Gibbons, because, it's more than just athletics. You do want to be able to learn something, and be taught properly by someone who knows what's going on. The teaching staff was superb, absolutely superb. So that was one thing that crossed my mind about going to the public school. And then, of course, the other one was, it's so big, so large, so many things going on. Maybe I would get lost in the crowd. I'm not sure. However, Aitkens wasn't there, and then what would I do without weightlifting? That's a joke.
How does Ed Harmon play into all of this during those years?
Oh, superbly. He was like an idol initially. My parents, my dad was like I mentioned, he was helped out with the first aid portion, the trainer portion, taping up people. He would tape up Ed Harmon when Ed was playing, and everybody else. And we got to know Ed, and Ed's dad came by, and of course, Ed, even nowadays at 6'4" and 240 was his official playing weight. Now I think he was a bit lighter than that in high school, but his dad would come up and say, we would say, your son is amazing. I mean, he's the big guy, right? And Ed did an excellent balancing of both being a human being, but knowing that he had some, height and some weight, more than the average person. I think he was like the tallest football player we had in a long time. But he wouldn't misuse it. And we would say, yeah, but talking to his dad, we say, look at he is just born with this extra height and athletic ability. And you know what his dad said? And he said, this is what I tell my son too. He says, you still have to put your pants on one leg at a time. So there's no difference. You go out and be yourself, do what you want to do. And that's what will get you through sports. And we did, after we graduated from high school in '66, my brother and I, we went to Murray State University, and Wilson, what was Wilson's first name? You interviewed him. He became the Secret Service guy. Dale Wilson.
Yes.
Dale Wilson went down there. He was a year behind Ed Harmon, but a year ahead of us. And he went down to Murray State on a football grant, all right, because Murray State was below the Mason-Dixon line, and they still had this Southern, if you're not from the South, you have to be exceptionally good to get a full scholarship. Okay. So he was down on a football grant, and he talked to us about it. And my brother and I applied. I was either going to go to University of Buffalo, or actually State University of New York at Buffalo, and go shot put and discus, or go play football at Murray. So my brother and I decided we were going to go down to Murray. We were on a football grant at the time too. And that was nice. And that year when we were preparing to go down, Ed Harmon, we knew Ed, and we said, we're going to train together over the summer, So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday was weight training at our garage. It was a 2-car garage, door was open, bench pressing and whatever. So Ed got up to, like he said in his interview, he set himself at 300 pounds to do bench pressing. My brother and I went to like 325, 330. We got a little bit more in there. And we did the weight training, Ed was very good at it, obviously, because he's big and strong. And so we do the weight training. And then Ed came up with, this is what we do at the University of Louisville, because he was going to go in now for his junior year while we were going into our freshman year, because he was 2 years ahead. And he goes, this is what they have us do. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you don't weight lift 2 days in a row unless you do a different set of muscles. Okay, you can do upper body one day, lower body the next day, but we didn't split it up that way. We had our workouts scheduled so that we worked all our muscle groups together 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So Tuesday and Thursday, he says, come with me. You just got finished asking me about then it was the junior high towards the end, but it was the senior high school in North Tonawanda. It was only a couple of blocks away from where I lived. And Dennis Winecki, whom you also interviewed, he was saying that's where he would go and watch the football games too. But Ed said, come on, we're going to go to the track over at the high school, the public high school. And this is what you do. For 2 miles, that means 8 laps, all right? You sprint the straightaways and you jog the curves. I said, what? Ed, what did you say we're going to do? And he says, this is what you do. So there we are, sprinting the 100-yard dash. You didn't rest, then you jog the curve. And then you got to the next straightaway, the next 100-yard dash, and you sprinted that. And you had to do that for 2 miles. So 8 of those trips. So we really got pretty well trained. This was an excellent exercise that Ed came up with. And so it was time to go on, and Ed went on, and we kept in touch with him. he did mention that he did have that arm, he tore his bicep. And we saw him after that. And, he played, this was amazing from his interview. He played 3 games before he could get it repaired because I think this was his senior year, just before he went into professional football, right? So he knew scouts were out and whatever, so he had to play it. So he was playing injured, and he was just an amazing guy. And so, so we had a good time.
How big of a culture shock was it from a couple of guys from Western New York going to Murray, Kentucky?
Significant. One, we noticed immediately just from the educational perspective, our training, our schooling, we took the 100 classes first, every freshman takes the, English 100, math 100, etc. This is like piece of cake for us. We've already done this stuff. It was really unique that way. However, playing football was a different story. I went there and I went in as an offensive guard, and I think I was the second fastest or third fastest guard on the team. And then my brother and I, Tony and I, were also continuing not only just their workouts, but we were still doing weight training, even on our own after those workouts. I was there one time. We dressed up, and this was 2 practices a day. You had to go down early in August and go out for, your practices. This is preseason practice, 2 practices a day. And so the morning practice, you didn't wear pants. You just had your shoulder pads, helmet, and, your jersey. And so now it was time that we had a circle, and we're now in college, right? And they say, okay, you two, big circle, you two go against you two. They're just going there and just to warm you guys up, block. So I said, okay, this is going to be nice and easy. There's no pants on, so this means nice and easy. I went in there, and this one guy, he was their number one. He was their number one guard. Oh, he was good, and he was like, I think I was a freshman, so he was either a junior at that time. And he came up to me and he just, pow, I flew in the air, landed back. It was like, all right, I get it. I can cope with this. I understand what's going on. You don't necessarily, I assumed it would be just a warm up. It was called a warm up, but no. All right. So we're going to play hardball here. Okay. And then, so that was one thing. The other thing is, the coaches for sure. I mean, they really knew and promoted people from the South. Without a doubt, if you came from the South, you got noticed a lot easier than not. However, Tony and I, all right, both did well. And they said it was winter workouts now. We finished the season. We're doing winter workouts for getting ready for the next season. And the coaches, and they put together and they said, hey, we're going to have a weightlifting contest. Who wants to participate in it? Tony and I said, sure, no problem. we like this. So we went in there, and it was a bench pressing contest. So Tony calls me over. He says, you want to do this? I said, oh, yeah, this would be fun. All right. This is the whole team. This is whoever wanted to participate. So this is, it was seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen. Okay. So we were still in our freshman year because it was winter workouts. All right. And so we get in there, and they start putting the weights on the bar. All right. And they put, they had like 150 on, and they said, okay, who wants to try this one? And Tony and I look at each other and says, no, we'll wait. We're going to take the next weight up. All right. These other guys are bench pressing 150. We started at 200. You put 200 pounds on, that's when I'll do my first one. So it wasn't a weightlifting exercise. It was just to see who did. So we'd pump up 200 pounds, no problem. We got up to 460 pounds. Nobody beat us. We did 460 pounds. And we got it up, and we set the record for them, and we were their strongest guys, even stronger than their seniors. And this all had to do with good weight training.
Wow. Who recruited you, or what was your recruiting trip like going to Murray?
We didn't really have necessarily a recruiting trip. We had some communication with the coaches. And again, as I mentioned, Dale Wilson was already down there. He linked us up, and then we just did communication. We did a phone call, I believe, and then some, then there was no email at the time. So it was regular mail, and we communicated that way. And so we got a commitment from them saying, come on down, we'll take a look at you, and we'll do a football grant, which meant not a full scholarship, but they would pay for books, fees, and room and board, that type of thing.
So you're saying it was word of mouth, and did they look at any film of you, or was there any film?
There was no film. There was no film. It was all word of mouth. This is what we did. Tony made first team all Catholic easily. I made the second or third team, I should say, all Catholic, and this is what information we gave them, and they said, okay, sure. And then Dale Wilson was down there, and he said, yeah, they're really good players, and I'm sure he played a role in that. So that's how it worked out.
How long did your football career last at Murray?
One full year. That's it. Like I said, it was an amazing place, but we weren't getting, we wanted more of a scholarship, and they weren't offering it. And so I, said, well, that's fine. Thank you very much. But I'm going to concentrate more on some studies. And I did that, and so did Tony. After we played, he played through and just said, no. I told him I'm not going to do this anymore. It was pretty rough, pretty difficult. Well, one of the coaches, I'm telling you, there's a significant difference between high school coaching and all the athletics you have to go through and exercises versus in college. College is definitely a level up. And as that example I gave you earlier about that person coming out and, pow, it's just supposed to be just tap your shoulders together and he knocks me over. And I said, okay, we know how this goes. They had another exercise, and this played in the back of my head too, where you get three people, okay, on the ground, three people. So one would go on top, this one would go on top, and you're on all fours, and then you'd have to leap over. All right. They kept on doing that. And of course, the coaches would say, faster, let's go faster. Well, finally, one guy landed on the other guy's leg, and you could hear it snap, pop. And they said, come on, get up, let's go, come on. They weren't very kind. Okay, the guy had a broken leg. I said, all right, you get out of here. Next three, let's go. So there was no humanity, so to speak, no niceness, no consideration. It was hardcore. I need you to produce. If you get injured, we'll take care of you later. Move out of the way. We're still doing practice, and this is what we're doing. And that's what it was. And, that was a significant difference. And unless you on a scholarship, it might not be worth it. I needed more time for my studies. I made Dean's List both years. The first 2 years I was down there, no problem, etc. Got another scholarship, a different type of scholarship. Both Tony and I got different scholarships. So, my parents, we tried to help them out by getting scholarships to help, defray the cost of going to college. Tony and I were the first in our family that went to college. So that was pretty good.
You live out in Western Michigan right now. When you get together with people sometime and you start talking about where you came from and you're talking about your high school and your high school experience, what do you tell people about Bishop Gibbons?
Oh, I say a lot of great things about it. The education was amazing. I definitely talk a lot about my brother Tony. I told you, we were identical twins, and it was difficult for people to tell us apart. And let me tell you a little story. All right. In high school, I was taking German classes. All right. And that was being taught by a Father Grier, who was at that time the assistant principal also. Then there was a Father Mertens who was teaching French, and my brother was taking French classes. So we said, oh, hey, let's switch. Now, he taught me just enough French to answer a couple and speak a little bit of it. And I taught him enough German just to say a few things. So we switched classes. All right, so this is hilarious. So the French guy's coming by and he's talking and he's asking me a question in French, and I would say something and he goes, and made no sense. It had nothing to do with his answer. It was just something I learned in French. And so he asked me, are you okay? He says, no, I don't feel so well. All right. The same thing happened. My brother was in the German class, and now Grier is the assistant principal. And he's going, and he kind of noticed it, but he couldn't tell apart. So then after the class, towards the end, my brother and I get called to the principal's office. All right. And, obviously lots of the students knew we switched classes and pulled it off, and we weren't caught dead center, at the class at the moment. So Grier calls us in. He says, now, did you two switch classes? We went, oh no, we just didn't feel, oh no, we wouldn't do something like that. Oh, it was hilarious. And he knew that we did, but we would not admit to it, and they couldn't prove it because we were identical twins.
If anything, what would be a downside of going to Gibbons?
A downside of going to Gibbons, I have to think about that. Maybe compared to nowadays, where there was always the girls' wing and the boys' wing. If they, I did have classes, especially math classes, and they were really, really good math classes with some girls in the class also, because whatever the teachers were, I guess they were brothers that were the teachers there. You didn't have to be a priest; you could be a brother, and you were a teacher. And so they had some excellent math brother teachers, if you will. And I don't know what the girls had, but we had them that way. So I would say it would have been probably a little bit more up to date, easier if the school didn't make such a big fuss out of keeping boys and girls separated. That's probably about the only thing I can think of as a downside.
How about the dress code? Was that cumbersome or bothersome?
Well, not for me. We were required to wear a shirt and a tie. When we got our letter sweaters, and I still have mine upstairs in my bedroom, we could wear letter sweaters. Other than that, you had to wear, like a sport coat or something equivalent to that. I was raised kind of, when I went to grammar school, my mom dressed us fairly well, always probably a nice shirt, and a pair of slacks, that type of thing. We didn't wear jeans and whatever going to school. So for me, the dress code was fine. For the women, the girls, I should say, they make them kneel down, and I guess the skirt had to touch the floor or something for length. So something like that anyway. But yeah, the dress code was challenging, but fine. I adapted to it and was very used to it. Priests, no, the priests and the nuns were just, they were fine. Yep.
Got to ask you
Okay.
about your brother. Your brother passed away in 2017.
Yes.
How much of an impact was that, his loss, and how does it affect you today?
Okay. As I mentioned, we were extremely close, especially in high school, and then and if you Google identical twins, you'll find out that as they mature and get older, even their DNA kind of separates and develops some of its own. So it's a unique situation. So in college, he was pre-med and he studied that. He took on a couple of extra things too. He took on karate, whatever. We both joined a fraternity, so there we shared that too. And then he in graduate school, I got married after I graduated, had a couple of children, and then went back to graduate school after working. I was a teacher, and I got a teaching assistantship, and I was studying, and I got my master's degree in German literature. I told you I studied German. Okay. And my brother, Tony, went ahead. He got his master's degree in biology, and then he moved to Chicago. All right. And was going to a pediatry school. He was going to become a pediatrist. And so I finished my master's degree. I went to LSU and worked on a PhD for a short period of time. But then by that time, I was now divorced, had 2 children. And so I had to pay child support. So I moved to Chicago. I moved in with my brother, all right, because I had to look for a job. And he was there going to school. And so he had an extra bedroom. And so I stayed with him for a while. And then looking for a job was kind of a unique thing, because now I'm in this big city. This was in the early 70s, right? And if you recall what was going on in the 70s, we were in an energy crisis. There was, hold down the lights. Don't turn, don't forget to shut your lights off. You're not using electricity. It's okay, so you don't use so much electricity. And I got to Chicago and I saw all these lights and, oh my God, is this fantastic? All right. So my brother takes me in, we're good, we're bosom buddies, and I'm looking for a job. So I go to an employment agency and I say to the employment agency, okay, what do you have available? I was teaching, I taught at LSU, I taught at Murray State University, and actually, I taught at the Buffalo school systems for 1.5 years. So he goes, oh, wait a minute. He goes, that PhD work you did? I said, sure. He goes, forget it. That master's degree you have? And I go, yeah. He goes, forget it. Way back when you majored in mathematics, we'll make you a computer programmer. I said, a what? I took one elective in college as an undergraduate. It was Fortran, and I got a B in it. You're going to make me a computer programmer? And he said, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do that and you're going to get a job with one of the big 8. I said, big 8 what? What's a big 8? Business. Excuse me. And so it was for Arthur Anderson and Company, and they were training. This was back in 74. They were training. They had people coming in with degrees in English, degrees in history. I had my degree I majored in math and German in secondary education. And so they taught us IBM mainframe, okay, basic assembler language coding. I said, oh, okay. So I learned that. And I asked this guy, I said, it's going to be computers. I said, is there any future in computers? And the guy laughed. Let me tell you, guess what? I'm still working full time. I work for a major software company, and I'm still working in computers 40 some years later. Wow. So Chicago, I went, I learned, got an IT job. My brother and I were together for a while. He graduated from his school for podiatry, moved to St. Louis. And then in St. Louis, we had some interesting experience. I was still living in Chicago. I would go down and visit him. All right. And so this time he goes, shh, my girlfriend's here. You're coming in. We're going to switch. And you're going to, oh, wait. He says, she's going to come to the door. You're going to pretend you're me. And then you're going to introduce me as you. So I said, okay, let's do this. So his girlfriend comes in, knocks on the door, and I go, hi, yeah, my brother's Tom's here. Here, you meet him. What? And she fell for it. She goes, wait a minute. So we were identical twins. They couldn't tell us apart. So she, it didn't go very far. She definitely figured it out, or we actually told her, we switched on you. So we used to have lots of fun, switching, keeping together. And then, he did some very interesting things. He was down there, and he was one of the first people to use laser technology for surgeries. He was a podiatrist that did a lot of ankle surgeries for people and helped them out. And he came up with some laser. He had his own office and whatever. He did quite nicely. Yep. Dennis Winecki was also a podiatrist. And
Exactly. We've talked about a few things so far. What would you like to talk about that I haven't brought up, or you haven't brought up?
Yeah. Well, what am I doing now besides IT type of stuff? And you asked me this question, southwestern Michigan. So from Chicago, I met another wonderful woman. Her name is Kathy. We got married. And so I was still in IT. So we got a sailboat, and we met some people here across the lake. So Chicago is on Lake Michigan, all right, but on the western edge of Lake Michigan. To come around Lake Michigan, you come up to Michigan itself, and we used to keep our boat there. So we had a 35-foot sailboat, and so we lived in Chicago. We had a house there. We first lived in some condominiums downtown. We didn't live in the suburbs. We lived in downtown. And so we said, well, what if we find jobs in southwestern Michigan? So we both looked and found IT jobs here, and so then we had a house built close to the lakefront and whatever. We had our sailboat, and never move to your vacation spot, because it no longer becomes your vacation spot, let me tell you. So it was, got to get up, go to work, got to get up and go to work. Okay, but okay. So we had that. We had the sailboat. We had a good time. We had some properties. We lived in a gated community. We built a stick-built house, and we had 2 acres. And we were like 1,700 feet away from Lake Michigan. We could walk down to the beach that was part of this gated community, right on Lake Michigan, whatever. But we were into organics, all right? And Kathy, my wife in particular. And so we wanted on our property, an organic garden, and we wanted ducks. And what do ducks do? Ducks eat insects, help keep the insects away from the garden, and they fertilize simultaneously. Yay, 2 for the price of 1. And so what did we do? We said, we're going to get ducks. And the gated community people said, no, you can't have any ducks. Oh, all right. So then we said, well, we've got 2 acres, and my wife was into horses. And so we were going to get a horse, so she can have it around, then she can go riding. And they said, no, you can't have a horse. All right. So she quits at IT. We have 2 long-haired dachshunds at the time. I'm still in IT doing consulting. And we said, all right. She comes home one day and she says, hey, look what I found. Let's go. What do you think of this? It's a 40-acre spread, 20 acres of woods, 6 acres worth of apple trees, a farmhouse, a 2-story farmhouse, a cottage behind it, and 2 falling apart barns. Okay. Oh, you what? You found this? What are we going to do with this? We're going to convert it to organic, and we'll live here, and we'll have that. All right, fine. So the farmhouse we discovered was built originally in the 1890s. All right. It's been remodeled a few times, but when we got it, there was like no cabinets or falling apart cabinets anyway, like maybe one old electric stove. There was no refrigerator. So we're having it remodeled. Excuse me. And who's remodeling it is a friend of mine, a German construction worker. German, I speak German. We got along just fine. He was retired. He used to build houses. So I convinced him into coming and doing the remodeling. Perfect. So I'm working, and Kathy, my wife, comes with our 2 long-haired dachshunds on a leash, because you're on a farm. Dachshunds are scent animals. So if you take them off the leash and they pick on a scent and you call them, hey, come back here. They look at you and say, what, you calling me? I'm on a scent. I can't come to you. Bye, see you. So she had him on a leash. She goes into the house to check up on how progress is being made. And she takes the dogs off the leash. The guy had the foyer door open, and the German guy goes, there was a goat in here. My wife said, what did you say? And he goes, there was a goat in here. When he said it the second time, this goat came in. The dogs go, oh boy, playmate. They're chasing the goat around. There's no furniture in there because we haven't moved in yet, right? All right. So my wife rescues the goat, puts it in the animal barn. All right. And so I look around, and there's a couple of other farms around, and they have goats, but no one claims this goat. Okay, we got a goat. However, we knew something else. Goats are herd animals. What does that mean? Well, that means you should not raise them alone. So you should pair them with either like they can be paired with a horse or a donkey, but preferably another goat. The next month was my wife's birthday. You'll never guess what I bought her for her birthday.
You're so bad. You got her a goat.
Got her a goat. All right. So making a long story short, so she goes through. So we breed them. She starts milking them. She starts making cheese in the kitchen. Then she takes a class in Montreal, Quebec, under a cheesemaker that won the National Cheese Society's award for the year. She takes a class there. Then she goes to California Polytechnical Institute, studies there. Then she goes to the University of Vermont for several seasons. They bring in international cheesemakers. She gets her certification, her master cheesemaking certification. And in 2008, we build this other building. It's called the Cheese Building. That's my wife's job now. This is her small business. And that's my 401k. Just kidding. So when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. When life gives you goats, you make cheese. So that's what I did. So absolutely amazing what I did. There I am, ex-athlete, going into IT, learning all this technical stuff. But now I have a farm. I got rid of the boat, the sailboat. We sold that. All right. Excuse me. So here I am learning about converting an apple orchard to organic, which we've done. We continuously do that. We take care of the orchard, raise it organically. I learn about, well, how should you feed animals and how should you treat animals? Because I'm a carnivore. I'm actually an omnivore. I eat everything, vegetables, beef, pork. And so I learned how to raise heritage hogs, and we sell heritage hogs, half hogs, whole hogs. We cut them up. We built in 2019 a retail shop on the property, and that's for the cheese and the retail pork. So I just learned all sorts of things that balance me out. High tech from, what I get from work, and then living here, looking at life, 40 acres, beautiful moonsets, sunrises, The fresh air here is unbelievable. There's no bright lights. You can see the stars very easily. And then how to take care of animals and how to grow things organically. It is a blessing in disguise. So I'm super happy with that.
I don't know if you get back to North Tonawanda much. I'm assuming you don't. What would you like to tell the people back home in your former Gibbons classmates?
Oh, great. Excellent question. Perfect. I was just there for last year's all high school, all class reunion. Okay. And unfortunately, several of us caught COVID from it. Minor thing, but significant, important. But that's when I finally saw Bob Aitkens again. He and I communicated and we planned on seeing each other. And it's just amazing. North Tonawanda, people will know it. I have forgotten many of the streets and how to navigate through it. Thank goodness for GPS. But yeah, I love to go back there. I had some relatives in Niagara Falls and that area, and I see them. There's in Lewiston. And so it's good to go back there. And the house I was raised in, one of the high school girls that I graduated with, her girlfriend bought the house from my mom. I didn't know that. I just found that out this past reunion. So it's just nice to see these people again. I ran into Cox. What's Cox's first name? The great athlete?
Mike Cox?
Mike Cox. Yes, he was there. And then I've just recently, after your interview with Ed Harmon, I reached out to him, and he's planning on being at next year's reunion. And I told him, yeah, I'm planning on being there too. And then we can see each other. We haven't seen each other in decades, right? So it's just nice to see all these people. I got to see in person Bob Aitkens. I mean, we've been talking for a while now, and of course LaBarbera. LaBarbera takes the cake all the time, and so does McCarthy, right? These are great. Wawrzynek, he is an absolute unbelievable character, right? Just unbelievable. So it's just good to see all these people.
Tom Halinski, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been a pleasure. This is a lot that we've gone through. You've gone from cobalt to cheese. You realize that. In your
Cobalt to
career,
cheese.
and also from the bad Niagara Falls NT to Kentucky and the Southern life as well too. You've pretty much seen it all, I think. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you well.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And my kindest regards to everybody from Bishop Gibbons, from North Tonawanda. And I look forward to seeing you interview yet even more people.